Tim Rohrer, author of Sales Lessons of the World's Greatest Mentors, Secrets of a
Yes.
Sales Winner that will help you become wildly successful in sales, all the way from San Diego.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
Thank you. Yeah, doing great. It's a beautiful day here in San Diego. The rain has finally stopped.
Finally, huh?
Yeah,
I don't
it
know,
looks,
man. We got rain that says Wednesday, Thursday, so I don't know. Are you jinxing us
well, it finally stopped for a couple of days.
for a minute,
I'll say
huh?
that.
Dude, this has been a crazy, it's the same for you, right? I mean, I'm just an hour north. It's like, I've been here 18 years. This is the
Yeah.
coldest, wettest winter I can ever remember.
This is the only winter I've been here where I've had to heat my house consistently. You know, sometimes in the other winters, I'd turn it on for a day or two and turn it back off.
Yeah.
I've had it on for the better part of the last month until today, probably. It's finally 70 degrees. You know, people who are not from here say, oh, San Diego, 75 and sunny. Okay. Yeah. Except not for the last 3 months.
Yeah. Well, my daughter got married last September, my oldest daughter, and in San Diego, in this old mission church with no air conditioning on the heat wave. So like we got all these extremes. They got the highest temperatures, coldest winter. Man, it's all
Wettest.
because like I drive a big truck. I know it's my fault.
You've been ruining the environment for all of us. And as a result, hey, you know what? As a result, we don't have a drought anymore. So thanks for that.
Yeah, we got so much water, we're dumping it back in the ocean. But I digress.
Yeah.
So, man, you've been in sales for a minute.
Yeah.
What led you to write this book?
The primary motivation for writing the book was I wanted to create a tribute to my mentor, Dick Harlow. So I had come off this terrible run, if you will, of bad luck and misfortune, and most of it caused by my own bad decisions. And I started a job as a radio advertising executive in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was way in debt. I owed credit card companies over $20,000, which was a lot of money back in 1990. And I didn't have
today.
I don't want to be in debt $20,000 today either, right? But back then I had, no income other than these occasional temp jobs. And I got the opportunity to start as a radio advertising executive at Magic 96 Radio in Charlotte. And Dick Harlow became my first general manager and my most important mentor. And for the next 3 years, he taught me everything I ever needed to know about sales and selling, and a lot of things about leadership and life, right? Just as a bonus. And I thought the best way to say thank you to Dick would be to write a book about him. So that's what I did.
Did we pause? You there?
Yeah, still here.
Oh, there you go. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. Like I heard you, then I didn't. Yeah. So that's awesome. So for 3 years, he was your boss?
Yep. For 3 years in Charlotte, selling radio advertising to local mom and pop companies is what I did.
Was it, did you have to go to them? Like, was it cold calling? Were you knocking on doors?
Yep. That's what we did. Yeah. We would go out in the morning and we'd travel around the city, calling on folks and knocking on doors and, trying to get them interested in radio advertising. And then we'd create proposals and try to move the process along.
Yep.
I don't think they do that anymore in radio advertising, but that's what we did in the 1990s.
Yeah. So speaking of that, like how have things changed, right? So you've been in sales now, what, 26 years or more?
Yeah, at least that, right?
And now you're the director of sales, right? Cox Automotive. I mean, it's a big company. We were talking earlier, 20 entities under the brand?
Yeah, 20 different business units underneath the Cox Automotive brand. I work for the Kelley Blue Book division.
And so how do you get business today? Instead of what's different, how is it similar?
So it's similar in the sense that people still buy from those that they know and trust, right? And that really has never changed and probably never will change in selling. Technology has changed the way we sell pretty significantly, right? I run a remote sales force, and most of those folks work out of their homes, and they use Zoom technology and Teams and emails and videos, and we're able to connect with dealers all over the western part of the United States and convince them to engage in conversations with us and demonstrate our products. And we sell it without meeting face to face. And
Right.
that's,
Now, is that since COVID, or were you doing that before COVID?
before COVID, we had a mandate to be out into the dealerships, right? So our job was to travel the country, going to see dealers and talking to them face to face. And then when we couldn't do that anymore, we realized that wasn't a very good idea, right? Going out there is so less efficient than staying in. But on the other hand, before the pandemic, dealers really weren't open to it, right? Not every dealer had some sort of WebEx technology or Teams or Zoom, and trying to get them to connect with you virtually, they didn't know how to do it. They were not technologically savvy when it came to that kind of thing. But they had to learn how to do it too, because they wanted to connect with customers, but keep their store closed at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it kind of all became very transcendent in a hurry. COVID didn't teach us anything new. It just sped everything up by about a decade, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I'm seeing all kind of forecasts on cars. Some were saying, oh, it went up too high. It's going to have a big crash. And then others are saying, well, because of the chip shortage, they didn't make as many cars. So there's going to be a glut, or there isn't that glut, right? So now when things should be coming down, we don't have the 3-year cars coming off of 3-year leases, which typically would be the inventory for the used market. So things are going to stay high. Like, what are you hearing from the dealers, and how are they adjusting to this?
So you are correct that when manufacturing slows down, one of the results is that the off-lease vehicles that are usually 3 years old do not come back to the dealerships the way that they were, because they were never bought in the first place.
Yep.
And so dealers are having to find other sources of used car inventory in order to bolster that side of their business. And they have to bolster that side of the business because they're not getting enough new cars to make the numbers that they're trying to make. They can't sustain their business model with new car sales alone.
Mm-hmm.
So used cars are a critically important part, and used car prices are high, and they're probably going to remain high. They go up and down some, but right now they're high, and they're probably going to stay high for quite some time. And of course, the price of new cars is high as well. It used to be that manufacturer suggested retail price was just a suggestion that nobody honored. And now it's hard to buy a car for less than that. And sometimes you have to pay a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some crazy things, and like, I would not buy a car in that environment, but I guess some people have to. I don't know, but this was only maybe 5 months ago. My wife got a coupon, right, from Toyota. So we take our little Toyota Sienna, our little paid off Toyota Sienna that we have piled 7 kids into for years. And now it's a beater that I don't care, right? But like, I'm keeping that thing, man. 110,000 miles. I'm keeping that damn thing.
110, that's just getting broke in.
I know, man. It's like, we got a Tesla, but like that, if we're going to the beach and taking the dog, we're in the beat up Toyota, right? Like, I don't care, get hair in it. But so she took it in, and then so I took her to pick it up, and I had time for my next meeting, and I walk into the showroom, and they had converted the showroom. They had desks all over the place. There was literally no showroom.
Yeah.
And I had never seen that. I mean, we don't shop for cars much, certainly not new ones. Like, is everybody doing that? Is the market that crazy?
Well, Toyota's having the most trouble of any of the major car manufacturers keeping new cars in the showroom because they're just not making enough of them. So if you were to look at a chart, Toyota would be on the bottom end in terms of total manufacturing relative to demand. So yeah, a lot of Toyota dealers are converting their showrooms to something other than a vehicle showroom, but not every dealer is in that same
Right.
situation. But Toyota
Right.
dealers certainly are.
Do you think the industry will change? Like we bought, this is our second Tesla, but
Sorry, you froze up there.
we made up our minds. We were literally, it was a Sunday. I was sitting at my daughter's soccer game, the one that's at San Diego State. She was still in high school, and I just downloaded their app, went through, ordered it, told my wife, hey, the options were go pick it up on Tuesday or we'll bring it to you on Wednesday. I was like, yeah, bring it to me on Wednesday. I don't like driving.
Right. So the question is, do I think that the industry is going to change? Yes, the industry is in tremendous flux. You see that American car manufacturers like Ford and General Motors, they are trying to develop a process that will allow them to sell directly to consumers, right? And of course, the dealerships are having none of that. And now you see states getting involved, trying to pass laws that say that vehicles need to be sold by individually owned dealerships as opposed to manufacturers. So yeah, it's changing because technology again allows it to be different than it used to be. If I want to buy a new Ford Explorer, I've owned two of them. I don't need to test drive it. I know I fit in it. I know how it works, right? So if I want a new one, I could just order it online and have it delivered. And that's true of a lot of people and a lot of different kinds of cars. And so it's changing dramatically, and it's going to keep on changing.
Yeah. I've always thought it was such a waste, especially like growing up in the South and moving to Texas and, hailstorms and just seeing cars sit in the sun and the rain, I mean, for weeks or months. It's like, who thought that was a good idea? It's always seemed crazy to me, but
yeah.
Well, I digress.
Well, you're correct. I mean, to see a car dealership with 500 or 600 new cars on the lot it just seems like an odd way of doing business, because you can't sell 500 or 600, in a week. So there's no real reason to have that many on hand.
Right.
And the reason why they did that was it had a lot to do with manufacturers wanting to push vehicles onto big franchise dealerships, because then they register them as sold, right? And there's this race to sell the most. And now they've changed their minds. They're saying, well, we don't need to sell the most. We just need to make the most profit.
Yes. Amen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting. So as things are changing, like how do you lead your team? Right? If it's literally changing right before your very eyes, how do you set targets and maintain momentum? Because like maybe your goals are like totally unrealistic, right? Because the industry just changed, and maybe you're too low, maybe you're too high, right? How do you keep folks motivated when something is this radically changing?
What I do is what I was taught by my mentor, Dick Harlow. He said the most important thing for a sales leader is to drive sales behaviors, right? He says you will be given goals that are outside of your ability to hit them, maybe, or certainly you're going to be given goals that you didn't choose, right? He says, so rather than focusing on how difficult it might be to hit the goal, focus on the sales behaviors that you can do each and every day. He says, and that was true in 1992, and it's true now, because if salespeople do what they're capable of doing, then it usually turns out okay. And if the company set unrealistic goals, the company will eventually realize that they set unrealistic goals, and the goals will be changed to make them more attainable. And if, sometimes the company sets goals that are too easily attainable, and we see them increase the goals as you get paid a lot of money for hitting 200% of your monthly target. So it goes both ways. But the one thing that salespeople can control is what they do each and every day. And so Dick says, hey, drive sales behaviors and everything will take care of itself.
Yeah. Yeah. My sales mentor, he said, something similar: manage activity and pay on results.
There you go.
Right. Just do the work.
Right.
And I always tell people, sales are just like weight loss. They're lagging indicators.
Yes, good point.
Did you do the work, the day, the week, the month, the 90 days before you stepped on that scale, before the quarter ended, and so
Yes.
what are the activities now, right? So you had that big pivot. Guys went from traveling to not traveling. Uh, are your prospects, as they adopt technology, are they easier to reach, or is it just a different way to reach them and it's the same challenge?
It's a different way to reach them, and it's a similar challenge, right? So if your job is to go out and make cold calls, then one of the challenges that you face is that people are busy when you're there, or the decision maker is not there. So you have to make a repeat visit, or you have to wait in a lobby or a showroom, until the person can see you. And that's hit or miss, and it's not very efficient. So now, as technology has changed, and as expectations have changed among buyers, you can reach out via email. The problem with that is it's you and 25 of your best competitors reaching out with similar emails. So you have to find a way to distinguish yourself and your message and your email and your approach. So some people try video emails, which is great for a while until everybody's doing video emails and it's lost some of its luster, right? So you just have to keep thinking of new ways to be different, to catch somebody's attention. I read a great book by Tom Fries. It's called Question-Based Selling. And he's one of my mentors, great sales author. And he said, there's only two reasons why people call you back. One is obligation. If your boss calls you, you call him back. If your wife calls you, you call her back. You're obligated to because of your relationship with those people. He said, but if you don't have a relationship with somebody that obligates them to call you back, the only reason they will is curiosity. He says, so how are you leveraging curiosity to connect with people whom you don't currently know and who don't currently trust you? And that
How do you?
requires being creative. You got to think of new ways. You got to think of new subject lines. You got to think of things like, should I deliver the email at 6 o'clock in the evening? Should I make a phone call at 6 o'clock in the evening after some of the screener people have left the building at 5, and the decision makers are still there? That's a tried and true tactic. Should I call people on weekends? Well, if it's a retail store and they're open on a Saturday, they're in business. You could be too,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to be creative, and you just need to brainstorm a few and try them.
Yeah. Are you coming up with these ideas? Do you let your team, your salespeople try things? Do you slap them on the wrist for being too crazy, or do you bump fists when they're too crazy? Like, how do you? Because sometimes people, salespeople push back. Oh, it's not my job. Marketing should be generating these leads, or or do you hire like crazy salespeople that are willing to go try new things?
I personally would rather rein somebody in than crack the whip to try to get them to do something,
Yeah.
So it's much easier to say to somebody, you went overboard there a little bit. Maybe don't quite do that, right? But 90% of what you did was really great. So let's keep doing that. So I find that's a way better approach. Not very many salespeople have the luxury of having somebody else generate their leads for them, frankly. There are some
Yeah.
big companies where that happens. If you work for one of those companies and you get inbound leads, you should count your blessings every day, because that's, half the battle.
Yeah. What are your people? What are they doing? What percentage of their business is new business versus like maintaining and like trying to deepen existing business?
It's probably, for our business, we're probably only about 20 to 30% new business at this point, because we've been growing rapidly and a lot of people have adopted our solutions. And so we now have probably a 70% emphasis on trying to retain and grow existing business.
And because that would be, in my mind, that's a different type of salesperson. Like I was always, greenfield. Let me go land new business. Like maintaining, certainly when I was younger, bored me to tears. It's like, I want to kill it, throw it over the fence, and I'm back in the woods. It's like, don't make me go to more meetings. And it's like, I want to land a new account.
Yeah. Don't make me field dress this thing and bring it back and store it in the freezer and then write up a report about how I did it.
I'll field dress it, but it's like, I want to throw it over the fence. I'm going back out. It's like,
yeah. To your point, those are different types of salespeople. There are salespeople who have complementary skill sets, right? And I think that when you're hiring somebody, the most important thing is to identify what are the exact behaviors that you're expecting, what skills are required of a person who's going to be doing those things, and then how do we screen for those skills and put the right people on the right seat in the bus,
Yeah.
Certainly people who can retain business are equally as valuable as people who can hunt for new business, right? But they are different skill sets, even though they're both called salespeople.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, they're all valuable. It's just, but you gotta have the right people at the right time and doing the right things.
Yes. Agreed.
So I was always at smaller companies, startups. And when I found myself at some bigger companies and maintaining, like I was in telecom space for a while, and it was so frustrating because we would call on the big telcos, Verizon and Sprint, those types. And it was like elections, like presidential elections. Once they decided they picked a vendor, they're sticking with that vendor for like 3 years.
Right.
And there's literally nothing you can do. You can give it away and like, we can't take it. We've standardized on this other product.
Yep.
And like some, a big company picking a new fleet. Like we got all Chevys here, free Ford. Nope. You have to wait 3 years to get on the next bid.
Yeah.
And my boss at the time, he was like, yeah, well, my boss told me, because he'd been in that longer. He says, we're structured so you make great money 1 year and you struggle for 2. And I'm like, I'm out of here.
That's not for you. Yeah.
Nope, I'm going.
Yeah. I want to make great money every year.
like, no way, man.
I do think the very best salespeople want to control their own destiny.
Yeah.
If they have a bad month, they understand that they didn't make money. But if they're in control, if they have an opportunity to have a good month or a good year every year, then they're going to stay motivated.
Yeah. So what do you mean here? Lesson 3. And I love lesson 2, but I'll make people get the book to learn lesson 2, because I always say that. But number 3 is beware the commonality.
Yeah. So this was a lesson that Dick taught me. One of the things that salespeople like to do is they like to look around an office or get to know a person by finding out what they're into. Like I watch some of your podcasts and I know that you're into jiu-jitsu. I don't know anything about it, right? So if I were a typical salesperson, I would have read a couple of websites about jiu-jitsu, and then I would have said something to you about what you have hanging on your office wall behind your head back there, right? I would say something to the effect of, wow, are those jiu-jitsu swords I see back there? And you'd be like, yes, that's what those are, right? And then I might say something else about, how much time do you spend doing that? Or do you like to do that? And here's the problem. If you and I are having a business conversation, if the reason why I'm in your office and I'm with you is because we're doing business together, you may not have time nor the interest in educating me about your hobby, right? You want to find out if there's a value in having a business relationship with me. So Dick would say, hey, look, yeah, you might be able to build a relationship around youth soccer if you see that they have got pictures of their kids playing soccer and you happen to coach youth soccer, right? He says, but if you go in there and you start talking to them about youth soccer, they may just like drift away because they thought you were there to talk about how to help them grow their business through marketing on the radio station. And now
Right.
you're talking about soccer. He said,
Mhm.
so you got to beware of the commonality. Commonalities are not always a great way to start building a trusting relationship. He says it would be better to note the commonality, offer the possibility of discussing it, but be prepared to go forward with a business conversation. So that might go something like this. Well, I see you have those jiu-jitsu swords on your wall, and I've been taking lessons for the last 7 years, and I would love to talk to you about triangles and arm locks, but I know that we're here to talk about business today. So maybe if we've got time at the end, we can do that. But I really want to talk to you about how I can help you grow your business, if that's okay.
Yep.
And now you've got a choice, right? We can talk about either one, whichever one you feel. You may be like, well, we've got an hour for this meeting. We could spend the first 30 minutes talking about our hobby that we have in common.
Yep. Wasn't
So
it
that's just,
Sandler? Was it Sandler talked about don't paint seagulls in my painting or something?
I have not taken the Sandler training, although I know many people have done it and found it valuable. So I don't know about his seagulls.
Yeah, it was somebody like they literally somebody like took somebody's like a kid's painting or something, and painted their own. Like, oh, it'd be better with a little seagull right here, and they drawn it like that was my painting. Like, don't insert yourself into something, right? That's there, like in their world, like unless
Right.
they invite you into their world.
Right. You haven't been invited in.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to ask for the invite before you jump into a commonality. And salespeople make the mistake of thinking a commonality is the best way to build a trusting relationship. And really the best way to build a trusting relationship that Dick taught me was through credibility. If you are a credible professional in your space and that person needs somebody like that, then they will enter into the beginnings of a relationship with you. And then you have a chance to build it over time through trust and, even commonalities at that point.
Yeah. And I see it all the time. And I'm the recipient of it all the time. And it's like, yeah, I can talk about jujitsu 24 hours a day. But man, when I got stuff to do, it's like, I don't want to talk about anything but what I have to get done.
Right.
Because I want to go back to do jujitsu. It's like, I got this thing in front of me. I got to get this thing done. That's why I'm on the phone with you, But yeah, it's still the old school. Like, it's crazy how bad habits, they're generational. Always be closing. Coffee is for closers, right? It's like, those are great lines. They were entertaining in a movie.
Right. It was a good movie.
But it's like, give me a break. You don't act like that. And I've studied that movie, right? David Mamet is my father's age. And he wrote that as a play, like in the 80s.
Right.
Based on his experience, in the 60s as an office manager for guys in real estate, right? So they were in their 30s, 40s, 50s. So this concept, I mean, it's literally like an 80-year-old concept, always be closing, it's like, and it's just still out there.
Yeah. And even then the movie was written not as a tribute to that style, but as like an anti-message,
Yeah. Yeah. People are still, oh, well, I guess as long as people are messing up, you and I will have a job.
Well, yeah, that's right. They can read my book and then they'll know.
They're like, why is this not working? Maybe I should Google sales books. How to be better in sales. Hey, look, Tim wrote a book. Let me buy that book.
Great idea.
Like, yes. Stop being that idiot. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's cool. So like I said, number 2, I love, and that, number 3, amen. I love, projects fail, people learn. Amen. So good.
I have a fun story about that. So
okay.
You read the book, so you know that the project that failed involved a seminar with Ken Blanchard and Harvey McKay. Now,
Wow.
Ken Blanchard in the 90s and Harvey McKay in the 90s, these were the two preeminent thinkers of our time, Ken for leadership and Harvey for sales. And I thought if I could get these two guys to come to Charlotte and speak, then we would be able to leverage the audience of our radio station to generate ticket sales, right? So instead of just selling advertising spots, I wanted to like do something that used the power of the radio station, get money from the consumers and not just from the business people. And well, it didn't work. And it's all chronicled there in the book. And I sent a book to Ken Blanchard, who's here in San Diego. And he called me and he said, I just read the chapter about me and Harvey. He says, I can't believe we only sold 300 tickets. And so we had a good laugh about that. And that's one of the great things about the book is like I connected again with my mentor, and I had people like Ken Blanchard calling me up on a weekend, sharing stories about sales and leadership.
Yeah, that's cool. Was it hard writing this?
No, it was pretty easy because I had these stories in my head for a long time.
Yep.
And I just had never written them down.
Right.
You know? And so when I started writing it in June. I created the outline and I was finished writing it and editing it in December. So really it only took me 6 or 7 months to do the book.
What drove you to do it?
I had been going to school for 5 years prior to that. So in 2017, I decided I was going to finish my degree. So I quit the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill as a sophomore and never went back to school, had a life in business and in sales. And then in 2017, when I started working for Cox Automotive, they had a tuition reimbursement program. And I said, I'm going to take advantage of this and take advantage of technology. And I'm going to start going to school. So I went to Northeastern University, which is in Boston. And I did it virtually, of course. And I graduated 5 years later with a degree in leadership. So I went to Boston and I walked across the stage and I got my diploma, and that was in May. And I came back and I was like, now what? Because that was taking up a lot of my time, right? I was doing evening and weekends, writing English papers and learning how to do college algebra and all this stuff. And I was like,
for punishment, man.
Yeah, it was hard.
Oh.
And so I like had all this free time. So I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to become nationally ranked in my age group in pickleball.
Oh.
That's what I'm going to do. So I go out to the pickleball courts, and on the very first point of the very first game of my new pickleball career, I tore the fascia on the bottom of my left foot. So I couldn't do that anymore.
You can't recover from that?
Yeah, but it's taken me, what has it been, 9 months? I can play golf. I can play golf now, but I'm still a little bit afraid to run and jump and play pickleball.
Oh
so
my gosh.
it was a long.
I still haven't played pickleball.
You need to give it a try. It's a lot of fun. It's like standing on a ping pong table.
I'm going to tear my fascia, dude. Then I
No,
can't do jiu-jitsu. Then I'll be mad. Then I'm going to use those swords. Those are not jiu-jitsu swords, but I will turn them into jiu-jitsu swords.
Well, okay, yeah. Just stretch before you go play. Stretch your arches and your calves and get warmed up a little bit.
Oh, the only time I pulled my hamstring, and I did it twice, was when I was in my 30s and started playing softball, and playing outfield, sprinting for a pop fly. Right? I played college football, twisted some ankles here or there, but doing these little side gig hobbies, right? Oh, you turned up crippled from stupid injuries. Oh my gosh.
So since I couldn't play pickleball and I was done with school, I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll write a book. So that's why I did. Yep.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you did. You have a name that people might mess up. Hell, they mess up the Sales Whisperer. And they mess up Schaefer. So my heart goes out to you.
Schaefer can be tricky because you got some CH Schaefers and some double F Schaefers.
Well, yeah, they'll leave out the C. I spell it the longest way. They'll leave out the E. They'll leave out one of the F. So there's a few ways to spell it.
Yep.
But I am linking to you. So Tim J.M. Rohrer, right? Rohrer. And if y'all are listening to this, just scroll down on the notes and you'll see the notes. There's a link to the book site. You can find it on Amazon. So check it out. And you got some bonus card tips you're going to give to all of our listeners too. You just that'll be supplemental.
Yeah. So
Send it
if they
later.
can see this, I've
There
got
you
a
go.
white paper, 3 reasons why your remote sales force is underperforming,
Yeah.
5 easy steps to fix it.
And that was right on the pop-up too. So I saw that on your homepage.
Yeah, on the website, timjmrohrer.com. And they can also, put in their email there and stay connected with me. I'll have some bonus content in the future. And I'm working on a cool idea that I came up with called Sales Meetings in a Box. And so what this will be is for sales managers who struggle to come up with content for their sales meetings. I'll just do it for them. And then they can subscribe to my Sales Meetings in a Box.
Yeah.
And then there'll be some bonus ways to earn those. Like if you buy books for your sales team, then I'll give you a couple sales meetings in a box to try out.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots more to come.
Yeah, that's cool. Because I've sat through many boring sales meetings and usually they're done wrong. Usually they're just pipeline reviews and berating people. And it's like, that is not how you run a sales meeting.
That is not right. No.
So having some ideas. So that's awesome. Well, cool. Mr. Northeastern University graduate.
Yeah.
Author.
Go
Tim
Huskies.
Very cool. Well, thanks for coming on the show, man. It's been great catching up.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Have a great day.
See ya.